7 grams. It's very apt in relation to, it will be kind of an interest in the last 6 decades of different, a debate that we over a certain amount of time. I guess they're going to introduce themselves and then we'll take Q&A. I'm going to hand it over to Garrett.
Yeah, thanks. Involved in this area and slow process to try and get change. But when we've had the Citizens Assembly, this isn't legalisation. I think a halfway house between legalisation and certainly decriminalisation of both the Joint Justice Committee report and laterally the most recent. Very, very hard to see how anybody could bill on about removing criminal sanctions. Gina says we're wondering whether it will go to a vote. The margin of that vote will be the margin of the vote in 2000 against regulation.
Kind of policy reform and doing some of the harms that have been done by existing drug policy. Again, just to kind of touch more on how this specifically will help to counter some of the harms we've seen. You know, I think in the last few months we've seen the amount of contamination in the cannabis supply and in the drug supply broadly as well. So, you know, again, this will be a good test to see, you know, how the government is taking this seriously. In light of, you know, seeing the hospitalisations, the harms that have come to the people from prohibition. You know, these products, HHC is on the rise, things like contaminants like spice are on the rise, and these products are a direct result of prohibition. And yeah, I think, you know, again, as Gina and Garrett have said, this is a very, very timid bill. It's very moderate in terms of its scope. You know, it's not much. It's 7 grams for flour, 2.5 grams for resin. And I guess, yeah, it will be, you know, kind of an indication of whether the government is ready to follow the lead of the public on this one, you know, reflected in the CA, reflected in the Joint Justice Committee report. You know, sentiment is changing towards kind of taking the criminal approach away and kind of moving forward with more of a help-led approach and more of a approach as well to just kind of the reality of drug use in Ireland today. So I'd be curious to see how that goes.
Thanks, sir. So is there any questions about Wednesday and other questions related to that matter?
Can I just ask, obviously the Citizens Assembly report on drugs was a fairly big deal when it came out last week. You know, the Taoiseach was fairly, I thought there was a marked difference in his sort of commentary last week compared to previously. But I suppose this bill is coming quite quickly after the final report is completed. Would you be concerned that the government might look to do a timed amendment on this to maybe kick it down the road another 9 or 10 months?
Possibly. Well, we'll get a good indication over the next day or so. Mm-hmm. And the Minister has stated that a special Oireachtas committee will be set up over the next number of months. Recommendations from the Citizens Assembly. So, part of, I suppose, that kind of, you know, that debate around decriminalisation. It is very good timing, and it's a stress test to, you know, if the government are actually serious. Decriminalisation is just one recommendation of the Citizens Assembly 36, but to me, it's one of the most crucial recommendations from the Assembly. So, with that, hopefully they won't oppose the bill and let it go to the next stage of that process. But we'll see. I think it will be possible for them to oppose it. It would look absolutely ridiculous. So I don't see that happening. And just to say that public opinion reflects the Citizens Assembly and so forth. And the public opinion have shifted dramatically in the last number of years in relation to this issue, and I think, you know, most people would even go further. You know, they would. I think majority of people would actually support regulation of cannabis, and we've always said this is a precursor to regulation. It's a moderate bill, and we think it's a stepping stone towards a more regulated system. Because decriminalisation in itself is limited in unlimited scope. So we need to have a regulated system, and other countries have regulated.
Dr. McGovern, I'd just like to get your opinion. There seems to be a stigma for years around cannabis being a drug to using other kinds. You've worked so closely with addiction for so many years. Is that something that is not the case anymore, and that stigma should not be there?
Well, I always say if you come out to West Tallock where I work and you believe that the people who live out there who become addicted to heroin are there because they had a route through cannabis, you know very little about addiction in general. The phenomenon of the gateway theory sounds nice. You know, you kind of start one and you move on to another. I think it's largely been debunked. To be quite honest, it's a distraction. It's often used as a weapon to halt people in their tracks who are looking at rules and regulations. So it's a long time ago since I kind of debunked that myself. To tape, really, to be honest.
Maybe from a European context, decades decriminalise cannabis and side of things. Is there any country or maybe try and copy and emulate what they've done?
I think some states in the United States are good models. I mean, in Europe, there's almost de facto legalisation in the Czech Republic, and some other countries have a more liberal cannabis use. I think in Luxembourg and Malta have recently changed their legislation, very similar to the bill that we have. Now, there's certain things, home cultivation, which is very well. I see a day where, you know, if people want to use cannabis, they do not have the fear to go to the black market, that there's a regulator and go down to the shop, product or whatever, and our system that we have at the moment, where revenues are generated not to the black market, more progressive things in society. I think that it's inevitable that will happen. Even in Germany this year, they're changing the laws around cannabis use. They have seen that, you know, the system that we have doesn't work. Criminals and people, it's just a kind of counterproductive. This is, I hope, I'm to avoid a debate around a regulatory system.
Actually, just have you had any
Informally, other people support it. Sinn Féin said they won't oppose it, so we'll see. I don't see them opposing it. This committee being set up, that's a possibility. You know, I'm not against. I think it's, you know, it's, I suppose about all this happened for a long time. Legislate and take these recommendations in, implement them, because we've had reports after reports. You know, you know, when we look at the wider debate around decriminalisation and, you know, and if we can change, you know, if we can change different mechanisms how we kind of treat people, it's willing to save, you know, society. So we need to legislate and implement to 6 decades that, if possible. I mean, that's a good party. Obviously, regulation actually. This issue, but
the media, and I put kind of words in your mouth. Tell us about the benefits of fervent, vocal people in my own decry the harms that are occurring. People who are most vocal benefits of prohibition benefits, because the one is a benefit, access to drugs, and it reduces harm. Now we look at jurisdictions towards a more regulated market, we're not getting an explosion in the amount of people who use cannabis. We're getting more people who, when they do use cannabis, and particularly and say, well, I've got a problem now, whereas so much stigma and fear of prosecution that they're not even to ask doctors and politicians. My own profession, bearing in mind we're talking about a health net approach, don't really want to know about this. People who are very pro-prohibition and leave the divide, but the vast majority have any view one way or the other that they're willing to say legalisation. And it's okay also to say prohibition is a perfectly reasonable. My neck of the woods don't want to talk about this. I don't see anything for people to be fearful of now. This is a very, very central a long time, and I think we need to be open about it. Drug use occurs, and there's nothing to see here. We talk about it as if every
Deputy, just 2 questions for yourself. 7 grams of cannabis, 2 come from? Was there any advice? Cannabis altogether. And thank you very much. So,
No, it's a good question. First, kind of Malta and Luxembourg. That I know it's very short content, but the legal advice or not is on board. That's in relation to full regulation. But the chance of that passing would have been, I think, very slim. It's on board. That's in relation to full regulation. But the chance of that passing would have been, I think, very slim. Regulation because regulation because you didn't just simply go for a regulatory system straight away and or change.